LHSAA continuing to monitor what's transpiring statewide and to try to make intelligent, rational decisions about everything. It's a very tough job to be in that position when you're dealing with the lives of young people and the livelihoods and the dedication and the hard work. And everybody wants to just snap their finger and say go, but that simply isn't possible. A lot of things discussed today with the media by the Executive Director of the LHSAA, Eddie Bonine, who joins us now. Eddie, listen, thanks for the time. Really appreciate it. I know it's been painstaking. You probably haven't slept a whole lot recently, I would imagine, right?
Ken, first of all, thank you for having me on, and thank you for joining the media Zoom today. No, I've been getting some rest. It just takes the long days and racing, but at the end of the day, you come home and spend time with your family, and then start it all over again tomorrow. But believe me, we're doing the best we can with what's been dealt to us, and we're going to continue to do so.
As we discuss it, I think the conclusion was one of the things you stated late in the media op earlier today, which was check back with me in 3 or 4 days. Everything we're telling you today, that could change dramatically in 3 or 4 days. You keep talking about it being a fluid situation, and it's not a cop-out or an excuse. It's true, because we're just having to wait to see what happens based on numbers, based on data, based on state regulations, federal regulations, CDC regulations, everything imaginable. There's so many different considerations. Are schools in session? Are people in school? Has the school started? And that's another dynamic that's in place, because just as an example, here in the New Orleans area, St. Paul's is a private school, and they're starting school. And they play in a league with St. Tammany Parish Public Schools, and they won't be starting until after Labor Day. So there's so many different things to consider, so many different things in place, that it is a moving target, isn't it?
It is, Ken, and I think we mentioned it earlier today that across our state, all the parishes and leaders had to submit their reopening plan to the Department of Education for review, and there's so many different times and places. In a normal year, let's just say a normal year, we have schools that open from this past week, the first month of Monday in May, there you go, in August, until the end of August, and we still move along and do what we do with the scrimmages and jamborees and all that stuff. And by the time we get to obviously Labor Day, everybody's sitting on all 8 cylinders. So it's a lot of different variables, but as an education-based association, it's very important that we get students back in the classroom. And when I say that, that doesn't necessarily mean brick and mortar. I'm an old-fashioned guy. Brick and mortar is good. But if we're going to do virtual, we're going to do online, we're going to do whatever we're going to do, whatever the delivery system is for the educational platform, whatever it is, we've got to get the kids back thinking again, get the teachers back teaching again, get the coaches back coaching again, and then eventually in a patient manner, get the kids back competing again. And I think that's where we're headed, and I think that we can do this if we just kind of do it together.
So much focus is on football, and I understand that. We all do, because of the nature of the sport and how much interest there is. And yet there's so many other considerations, starting with the good news. Volleyball can get started at this stage in early September after Labor Day. And cross country, because of the very nature of the sport, can also get started. So good news on those fronts.
Exactly. And again, I mentioned that today, that we have about almost 14,000 athletes participating in cross-country, swimming, and volleyball that are able to start in phase 2, which is the phase we're in now with the static group of 25 restriction, are able to start and start competing at the end of the month. So they're good to go. Next Monday is the first day of starting practices. There's 21 days of preparation and heat acclimation and things that we do to get those athletes ready to roll in all the sports. And then volleyball will be able to start practice, and they'll be able, like you said, kick in and have a scrimmage or two right there toward the end of August and start September 8th, and that week of September 7th and 8th. So they're all going. So out of the 4 sports we offer in the fall, 3 of them are there. Now we have 19,000 football players across our state and numerous classifications and divisions. We're doing it the way we're doing it, and you heard today from Dr. Stewart, who's been doing an incredible job for us, and Mr. Federico, our board president, doing an incredible job in guiding the committee, and has been a good confidant, and is a native Louisianian. I mean, you were talking generational educator in our state, right down there in Jefferson Parish, in the Jefferson Parish, Orleans area. And that said, we're doing it the right way. And as you mentioned in the lead-in, a lot of people like us to be able to snap our fingers and think we should just be able to do this and be able to do that. But I think your listeners understand and are reasonable the fact that we're not LSU. We're not a major university. We're working with adolescents, and we work with, in cooperation with, the Betsy Board, Board of Elementary and Secondary Ed. We work cooperatively with the Superintendents Association, the School Boards Association, and, of course, the state school superintendent. And we do it under the guise of state statutes. And as long as they're in place, that's what we're going to do. And I'm not going to do anything to put any of our member schools in a position where they got to make a choice of go this direction or violate state statute. Not going to happen. We're going to stay within the guidelines and do it the right way. It's just going to take some patience, and we're going to do it safely.
We'll talk about the football plan next, but one of the things that you mentioned today that I thought was important, and I concur with you, is the fact that if you would go to the last resort, moving football to, say, the spring semester, it's a last resort for several reasons, not the least of which is it impacts so many other sports, boys and girls. Fact and point, in girls' sports, so many girls play both volleyball and basketball. You know, I'm thinking of the Country Day team here. They have stars in both sports that are the same players. And
that's correct.
That is also true, of course, in boys' sports between football and basketball, but also football and wrestling. These sports cross-pollinate with a ton of players who play both, and it would take away from the other sports if you focused on football so much. So that's part of the consideration, right?
It is, and that's why we've gone with the plan we have, particularly with pushing that start date back, which is going to be in compliance with safety and medical reasoning and numbers. And then, but we don't want to get it too far back because, as you mentioned, a lot of those football players are also wrestlers, and that wrestling season is short, to a certain degree, short as it is. And now we're going to compress it even more. We got to be concerned about their safety. I mean, we still got winter sports to be considered. Obviously, with basketball still is considered a high risk for COVID, and that's where they fall in the same category as football and wrestling. So those are two coming up in the wintertime. And then we have which I know you've been to, these incredible powerlifting events where we got weights and bars, and I mean, we got all kinds of stuff going on on the floors when we work out, do the powerlifting events. So all of that piece is being taken into consideration. But at any time you start the accordion effect, you start squeezing something, when you come back out, it's going to set another sport on top of another sport. And you already know, and you cover all of them. We already have substantial overlaps in between fall and our winter sport. Not so much maybe from winter into spring, but we do have a good carryover already in fall and winter. We're trying to prevent that from getting any worse than it already is.
Eddie Bonine with us, the Executive Director of the LHSAA. The current plan for football is simple. That is, the second week of October would be the target for starting a regular season. And I say the target because that's all dependent on what phase the state is in. And, of course, we got the announcement from Governor John Bel Edwards yesterday that it will be phase 2 for 3 more weeks, which means the next announcement would be August 25th. The hope and prayer is that it will change then, because then if you can get to phase 3 and you have a week and a half to 2 weeks where things have stabilized, then you can have a contact/collision, and you could play football and thus start the second week of October with the regular season. Now, doing the math, and we all were doing this earlier today, September has 4 regular season playing dates, and then there's the 5th date, which is the first week of October. So essentially, when you're talking about October 8th and 9th, which is what we're talking about, that would be on the normal schedule, as I calculate, playing date number 6. And yet there's still the option or the opportunity to play as many as 8 regular season games. To make that happen, you've got to push everything back 4 to 5 weeks to be able to accomplish it and try to compress it. But the trade-out is that you probably reduce the playoffs by at least a round to make it happen. We're trying to make the math work here. I think that's what we're getting at is if you go to the maximum 8-game schedule, you definitely start with week 3. You don't play the first 2 week scheduled games. And then when you get to the playoffs, on the non-select side where you have 5 rounds, you reduce the number of teams in the playoffs. Would that be the right math?
That is, and plus we're also trying to, and attempting to do so, and looking at dates now that would be not targeting that second week in December that we normally have the original scheduled Prep Classic. That would be looking at potentially the following week, days of that week, and or the week after Christmas. Ideally, trying to get to maybe that last week in December would be one we would look at, because we could get in there prior to any potential New Year's Day, obviously Sugar Bowl event. So that gives us that time. That would be the ideal. I think that asked that question today. That would be ideal. That gives us those 8 games, and it gives us a abbreviated, but still gives us a postseason participation. Anything deeper we get into October, then of course it starts to squeeze that down, and we go from the 8-game to 7-game. And then worst case scenario would be we start on 8-9, and we are not able to expand on the backside. So we're planning that. We got all those variables in there. But at the end of the day, what I wanted to make sure people got today was what's the start date? Here's the start date for what cross country. Here's the start date for swimming. Here's the start date for cross country. And here's the projected start date for football. Football is always unique in its own right, and it should be. That's why it's going to take longer. But at the end of the day, I truly believe that the athletes and coaches are going to get an opportunity to participate. And I'm just hoping that along the way, we don't have any major hiccups with any type of contraction of COVID. And if we do, we're prepared to handle those, as you heard today, with each case in its own merit, and schools as well. And so schools that unfortunately have a case or two, or whatever the case might be, that won't be held against them, we'll move forward, and we'll figure out a way to make sure that it doesn't hurt them in the long run.
You have to work around several issues. Of course, the Mercedes-Benz Superdome houses the R&L Carriers New Orleans Bowl on December 21st, the New Orleans Saints playing on Christmas Day, the All-State Sugar Bowl on January the 1st. So there's a lot of navigation there. To be able to make it work realistically, it would have to be after the Christmas Day Saints game and prior to teams of the Sugar Bowl being in the Dome and working out. So the window would seem to be, and I think you talked about this earlier today when you discussed it, the window would have to be, I suppose, Monday the 28th, Tuesday the 29th of December. Would that be correct?
Well, in the state playoffs, if need be, we can play on Sunday. We did that, if you recall, a couple of years ago in baseball.
Sure.
The regulations there, so we could theoretically, if we get to that position, would be a potentially move in on a Saturday, and then could potentially do a Sunday. Sunday, I think we'd start probably at noon. I'm just saying this out loud to you and the listeners.
Sure.
A Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. The event, and at that time of the year, we're in the holidays, so each day is a Saturday, right? So we can get people in the facility, and I think at that point we'll know about what capacity is being allowed in the city. And I don't know if I steal your thunder on what we're going to talk about overall attendance, as we did with Dr. Stewart today at school sites during the school year.
Sure.
But at the end of the day, an event or two is obviously that happened in the Superdome, and of course, this all predicates on the fact that the Superdome is still, New Orleans is still in a good spot with the virus, and things are going the way it's supposed to go, and which I think it will. I really think that people of Louisiana see the importance of staying healthy and what it takes to do so, to want to be able to watch the New Orleans Saints play at home, to be able to see those games, and also to watch big time college football all across our state, whether it be there in New Orleans or here in Baton Rouge or in Monroe, Shreveport, wherever. Ruston area. Everybody wants to play, and I think that we need to do that. And the only way we're going to be able to do that is bring the numbers down and do what we're supposed to do with the mitigating measures and as a state and make that happen.
And you say the possibility of 3 days, and the reason for that would be the possibility, and I stress possibility, that select schools would return to playing their championships in the Superdome, which did not happen last year, and that was a mixed bag. You were at the Division I game. That went off well. That was a good facility, and those are two big schools that can draw and support that. The others were, with all due respect, a mixed bag, or really not that successful. The opportunity has been extended to select schools to possibly return to playing with their non-select brethren in the Dome, and I know you're awaiting a vote on that right now, but the initial response you got was pretty positive to that, wasn't it?
It was, Ken, and what it came down to is pretty simple for me. I've had individuals say, Mr. Bonine, you've even said it to me, Eddie, I don't envy the position you're in. It's a tough decision you and the committee have to make. And I say thank you very much, but who the people that really need to have the envy right now is those principals and the teachers all the stuff that's being thrown at them right now on bringing everybody back together and trying to get the educational process back and up and running again. The guidance counselors, all the support people of all of our campuses across our state, they're busting their tail to get this done. The last thing a principal or principal's athletic director on any school, in this case be the select side schools, the division schools, had to be worrying about where they were going to play their football game, who's organizing it, what athletic directors is going to do that, what principals are going to be involved. And Ken, it just made sense for us as an association who runs these events. We've been doing it for many, many years until the last 2 or 3 for the select side. Come back to the Dome and play with us. We'll run this doggone thing. We're going to set up times, and we're going to do it like it used to be in all the sports. At least right now it would be for football. And then as this corona continues on, we've offered for football, for baseball, and for basketball and softball as well. And we've talked to the venues. We'll make it happen. We're not looking for anything other than that right now. This is not an end around by Eddie and the committee to see if we can mend the fence and try to get select and non-select out of our system and back together. It's not that at all. At the end of the day, this is about kids and principals having enough to do, athletic directors having enough to do, and giving them. And I know that right now, if this the committee, the select school committee that we hosted the meeting at our building, they unanimously agreed it was a great idea. They thanked us for doing that. We want to do it for them. And they were just going to send out a survey to the rest of the select principals. It was very simple, a thumbs up or a thumb down, and we're waiting for those results. But at the end of the day, that would be something that we would look to do, knowing that the select schools were in favor of it. We're not looking for a simple majority. We're not looking for 2/3 vote. We're looking for, let's do this. Let you all concentrate on what you have to do with what COVID's brought to you, and let us take care of the championship piece, which is what we do and we enjoy doing and we pride ourselves doing for all the students this year. And then we'll decide what we want to do afterwards when it comes to next year's reclassification start process. This year we reclassify, new classification starts, and then we can talk about all the rest at another time. But right now we need to get everybody in the same facility so all the kids can have an opportunity and the principals and everybody else at their school can just concentrate on education.
Final thought, 3 weeks, of course, Governor Edwards will make his next proclamation. God forbid if we stay in phase 2, what does that do, and does that pretty much eliminate the plan in place right now?
It does not for obviously 3 of the 4, but it does cripple what we want to do in football. And we have some tentative plans there. But anyway you swing that, it makes it difficult to have that season where there's going to be some type of championship crown. We're in conversations with the football advisory, which are head coaches and a couple of ADs that are from all around the state, all classifications, both public side and non-public side. Was something is better than nothing, but of course we want to have a minimum standard established to if we're going to play for a championship and hand out some hardware. If not, do we play a 4-game, a 5-game, a 4-game, 3? Just something is better than nothing. Gosh, I hope, Ken, we don't get there, and I don't believe we're going to. I believe what the resilience of Louisianans and what they can do here, and we need to get out of this phase 2, get to phase 3, and then continue to make progress and get this thing going so we can start playing some big boy football and get all of our volleyball and all our runners and sprinters what they deserve, and that's a full season.
Yeah, the only other question before I'll let you go, this one's been emailed to me again tonight. I get it all the time. If school is not being attended and is not in session, can athletics take place in that particular school?
When you say not in session, are you meaning students are just full-time virtual or full-time online
correct.
students?
Yes, full-time virtual online, correct.
Yes, as long as they met the minimum standards of the Carnegie units that they were required to take in spring semester, which I believe the majority of students did, with that March date being the date that some schools finished and others did some enhancement and remediation through virtual. As long as they've got that with a minimum 1.5 GPA and are presently enrolled in the number of Carnegie units and credits necessary for this semester, they can be taken in any way they can take it, and they're eligible through the LHSAA. Caveat is, it depends also each LEA, the acronym for the local education agency, on whether they have stipulations or not, whether those athletes can or can't participate. We don't supersede that. We're a minimum standard, and if a parish wants to make it a little bit stiffer, where you've got to be in brick and mortar to participate, then they can do that. They can make the multiple platforms. Some schools are going the first 9 weeks all virtual. Whatever they're doing, as long as the kids are getting the seat time and getting that education and starting to expand their minds, we're good with it, and we're not going to get in the way of that.
He is the Executive Director of the LHSAA, Eddie Bonine. Eddie, listen, thank you for the time today. As always, we appreciate it and appreciate you. God bless you and yours. Nothing but the best. You have a tough job, and we're all hoping and praying good things happen in the state and it makes your job a little bit easier.
Ken, thank you, and we appreciate what you do for high school sports and have done for many, many years across the state, not only in New Orleans area, but across the state. We appreciate you as well, and thank you for the blessing.
You got it, Eddie. Thank you. That's Eddie Bonine of the LHSAA.